The old farmer had warned them, his words thin as the winter wind whistling through the cracks of his weathered porch. He'd said the land remembers that the turn of the year was a thin time, a doorway. But to a group of college friends, fresh from the city and drunk on the promise of a new year, his warnings were just local color, a rustic ghost story to tell back in their dorm rooms. They'd rented his old, disused farmhouse for the New Year's holiday, a sprawling, skeletal structure at the heart of a 100-acre spread in rural Pennsylvania. They saw an escape, a party venue. They didn't see the shadows that clung to the property long after the sun had set. The first day was idyllic, almost deceptively so. Snow blanketed the fields in a pristine, unbroken sheet, muffling the world in a profound silence. The five of them: Liam, the pragmatic leader; Maya, his ever-curious girlfriend; Chloe, the group's vibrant, artistic soul; Ben, the quiet observer with a camera always in hand; and Noah, the boisterous life of the party, spent the afternoon exploring. They trudged through the snow, their laughter echoing against the stark, black skeletons of oak trees. They found the old barn, its red paint peeled away by years of sun and storm, the massive doors groaning on rusted hinges. Inside, the air was cold and heavy, smelling of hay, decay, and something else, something acrid and ancient. Noah, ever the showman, climbed into the hayloft, proclaiming himself king of the farm. He tossed down handfuls of dusty hay, and for a moment they were just kids playing in a forgotten playground. They were oblivious to the faint, rhythmic scratching sound that seemed to come from the floorboards beneath them, a sound that stopped the instant they decided to leave. As dusk bled across the sky, painting the snow in hues of violet and rose, they gathered in the farmhouse. A fire roared in the great stone hearth, casting dancing shadows that made the corners of the room seem to shrink and expand. They were preparing for their New Year's Eve feast, the final celebration before the clock struck midnight. That's when the strangeness truly began. It started small. Ben, reviewing the photos he'd taken in the barn, called Maya over. He pointed to a picture of Noah in the hayloft. Behind him, almost lost in the gloom, was a shape. It was tall and unervingly thin, a smudge of darkness that didn't belong. They dismissed it as a trick of the light, a lens flare. But an unspoken chill had entered the room, colder than the winter air outside. Later, as Chloe set the table, she let out a small cry. A single dinner plate had cracked clean in half, right down the middle, untouched. They joked about the house settling, about the cold, but their laughter was strained, a little too loud. The scratching sound from the barn returned, only this time it wasn't distant. It was closer. It seemed to be coming from the walls of the house itself, a dry, insistent scrape, like fingernails dragging on old wood. Liam, trying to maintain a sense of control, went from room to room, banging on the walls, shouting for the raccoon to get out. The scratching would stop the moment he approached, only to resume in another part of the house as soon as he turned his back. The playful atmosphere had curdled into a palpable tension. The house, which had felt like a charming relic, now felt like a cage, its silence between the scratchings heavy with watchful intelligence. The countdown began. 10 seconds to a new year. They held their champagne glasses, their faces illuminated by the television, forcing smiles. 10, 9, 8. The lights in the house flickered violently. 7, 6, 5. A low growl rumbled through the floorboards, a guttural, inhuman sound that vibrated in their chests. 4, 3, 2, Every window in the farmhouse simultaneously frosted over with a thick, impossibly fast layer of ice, sealing them in. 1. Happy New Year. The television blared, but the cheer was drowned out by the sound of the front door splintering, bursting inward as if hit by a battering ram. The wind howled through the opening, but it wasn't a natural wind. It was frigid and carried a stench of damp earth and rot. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the snowy night, was the figure from Ben's photograph. It was not a smudge of light. It was impossibly tall, its limbs too long, its joints bending at unnatural angles. It had no discernible face, just a smooth, pale expanse where features should have been. Yet they felt its gaze on them, a malevolent weight of pure hatred. It moved with a twitching, disjointed grace, its long, spindly fingers tipped with what looked like shards of obsidian. Noah, his bravado shattered, was the first to react. He hurled his champagne bottle at the creature. The bottle passed straight through its torso as if it were made of smoke, shattering against the far wall. The entity didn't even flinch. It took a step into the room, and the scratching sound was now deafening, coming from its own throat, a dry, rasping hiss. Panic erupted. Ben fumbled with his camera, trying to use the flash to disorient it, but the creature simply absorbed the light. It lunged, its movements impossibly fast. It seized Noah first, its long fingers wrapping around his throat. There was no struggle. Noah's eyes went wide, a silent scream frozen on his lips as his body went limp, all life draining from him in an instant. The creature dropped his lifeless form to the floor and turned its faceless head, a gesture of cold assessment. Chloe screamed, a raw, primal sound of terror. She scrambled for the fireplace poker, a pathetic weapon against such a horror. Liam yelled for everyone to run, to get upstairs. But there was nowhere to go. The house was its domain. The entity seemed to delight in their fear. It moved toward Chloe, its body contorting as it scuttled across the floor like a broken insect. She swung the poker, but the creature caught it in its hand, the iron glowing red hot before melting into slag. Its other hand shot out, not touching her, but passing through her chest. Chloe gasped, a single bloody tear tracing a path down her cheek. She collapsed, her vibrant energy extinguished like a snuffed candle. Blood began to pool on the old wooden floor, a dark stain spreading from the bodies of Noah and Chloe, stark against the festive decorations. Ben, frozen in terror near the window, finally broke. He smashed the frosted pane with his camera and tried to climb out, but the creature was on him in a heartbeat. It didn't grab him. It simply placed a hand on his back. Ben's body convulsed violently, his bones cracking with a series of sickening snaps as he was folded in on himself, a grotesque, broken doll. Only Liam and Maya were left, huddled in the far corner of the room. The fire in the hearth had died, plunging the room into a terrifying gloom, lit only by the faint moonlight filtering through the shattered door. The creature stood over the bodies of their friends, its form seeming to pulse and shift, growing darker, more solid. It turned its blank face toward them. There was no anger, no emotion they could comprehend. There was only a void, an ancient hunger that had been waiting patiently beneath the soil of this farm. Liam pushed Maya behind him, his body trembling but his resolve firm. He would not let it have her. The creature took a slow, deliberate step, then another, its presence sucking all the warmth and hope from the air. The scratching in its throat grew louder, turning into a sound that was almost like a word. A name whispered on a dead wind. It was the name the old farmer had spoken, the name of the thing the land remembered. As its shadow fell over them, Liam finally understood. This wasn't a haunting. It was a harvest. And on this first day of the new year, the land had come to collect its due. The final scream was lost in the sudden absolute silence that fell over the farmhouse as the snow outside continued to fall, burying all evidence of the night's horrific celebration under a blanket of pure, indifferent white.